Hello there everybody, today we're going to be taking a look at a mod. I haven't done one of these in a long time, and I wanted to get back into it because, Skyrim is still being modded very heavily, and in fact modding has sort of picked up again a little bit, not that it ever really died off that much, but maybe it has something to do with the whole, Bethesda craze going on right now, of course. Hey man, with the whole Fallout 4 thing. But modding is a very important part of the game, and there is a modder that goes by the name of, Enai, look, the Belgian guy, the Belgian modder that makes really good stuff like Dwimmerverse, Spectraverse, Apocalypse Spell Package, Ordinator, and the mod that I'm going to be covering today, which goes by the name of Thunderchild, which is a shout package mod that adds new shouts and a new way of obtaining shouts. Now, one of the most unique parts of the mod is what it is, a shout package. There are pretty much no other mods that actually add exclusively shouts. There are a couple of magic mods and things that might add a few shouts here and there as kind of like an extra bit, but there's pretty much no other mod that I can find, at least, that focuses on adding a bunch of new dragon shouts to the game. And this mod is very well done. The way it works is it uses the words that are already in the game, so it uses all of the current voice acting, so it's all correct, but mixes them up a bit. Every shout consists of usually one word from one shout, and then the last two words from a different shout, which I have a feeling is to do with the way the voice acting lines are actually played to make it sound good, and it works. Every shout does sound, it doesn't sound like it's lazily hacked together or anything like that. They sound natural. So, to get into it, I'm going to show you how it starts, basically, and in order to actually use the mod, you have to complete part of the main quest line up to the Horn of Jurgen Windcaller, basically where you're given access to High Hrothgar, which is obviously where I'm at now, although it's a bit of a blizzard going on right now. And once you complete the Horn of Jurgen Windcaller and the Greybeards shout at you and you get all of the words of Unrelenting Force, etc., etc., you are given a key to the library in High Hrothgar and basically access to the whole place. The library is, of course, added by the mod. And the library is where you'll be going to obtain your new shouts. So the system of shouts in the game is based around Kine, Kinnereth, the goddess that basically, in the lore, taught humanity how to shout like dragons. And so everything is kind of based around Kine and your favor with her. And in fact, there is a direct favor system. So for instance, let me just do this. I believe the command is this. Hang on, Kine. Faith Global, I believe. Boop. Yes. So right now I have 4,358 favor with Kine, which is ridiculous. But essentially what the favor system is if you go here to your magic menu, you'll notice one of the new things the mod adds is a couple of powers. In this case, Champion of Kine is an active effect, and every certain amount of favor you get a little bit of a percentage towards your shouts. And since I have so much favor, my shouts are quite a bit more powerful, actually. The mod adds many ways to gain favor, and I'll go into those once we actually get some of the shouts rolling. And favor is something that you'll be gaining pretty much the entire time, and in order to actually learn the shouts, you need a certain amount of favor. If you know... This is where the library is, by the way. If you know at least one word, the beginning word, of a new shout, you can learn it at any time. But in order to get to the second word, you have to have at least 500 favor. And in order to get the third and final word of any of the new shouts, you have to have 1,000 total favor. And that doesn't take very long, really. But this is the new library. This is the new space added by the mod. The High Hrothgar library is essentially a room for yourself. It has some safe storage to use. There's this amulet, which is a different mechanic that I'm not really going to go into right now because I don't want this video to be really, really long. You've got a bed and some simple things. Again, it's a simple life up here. And a couple of other little bits and bobs that give you a nice little relaxing place to go and chill. This is essentially like a small player house. And there's a little bit of a secret back there if you want to go search it in your game. And you'll be given a little book in here that will give you all of the details on the new shouts, which is awesome, because one of the ways that the new shouts work is they have multiple uses, which again, I'm going to explain all of this, I promise, once we actually get into it. Another thing before we begin, what this mod actually does is it adds a bunch of these. It adds a bunch of Greybeard robes, different sets of different colors and patterns. There are all kinds of them. So you can dress like a graybeard, and there are all sorts of different ones. Every one of these 4 wardrobes has different robes in them, and there are a couple of unlockable ones as well. So this is where you'll be spending most of your time learning the shouts. This is a statue to Kine, and it's got little mini hawks. And you're going to meditate here in order to learn the new shouts. All you have to do to learn a new one, if you just look at my shout list, I've got a couple of the new ones here, the very beginnings of some of the new ones. Annihilate, Armageddon, Curse, let's see, Earthquake. A lot of these are the first words of a lot of the new shouts, so you can see the way they go. And this Ice Form shout is a glitch on my end, don't worry, it's not part of the mod. And essentially, they work just like vanilla shouts do. The way that you actually gain them is a bit different, however, so we're going to go into that. In order to gain them, you have to know and have unlocked, by the way, you have to have spent Dragon Souls on the words. And every shout consists of 3 words just like the vanilla ones. So what you got to do is go here and hit this to meditate. What it's going to do is you're going to sit here on this mat in front of the statue, and your stamina meter is going to begin to deplete fairly rapidly. And then it's going to disappear. And you have to wake up by just pressing a button and stop the meditation when your stamina meter, you think, is around 20% left, so around 80% empty. If you do it too early and get up too early, it'll just say, hey, you stopped the meditation too early, try it again, and you won't get anything. However, if you do it too late, nothing will happen, or it will summon these angry little phantoms that will attack you. They're kind of like graybeard ghosts that will attack you. Although you do get favor for killing them. So you gotta nail the meditation just right, and if you're around that 20% mark, then when you get up, you will have learned all of the new shout words that you currently know, all of the new shouts that could be formed from all of the words you know and have unlocked. Also, the meditation is scripted to remove, by the way, your stamina regen, but that's only the basic regen on your character, so if you have any kind of armor pieces that boost your stamina regen, you may want to remove them temporarily, like this, for instance, while you actually meditate, because it might go down extra slow or something. So if you have a problem with that, it's likely not with the mod, it's just that you need to remove some stamina boosting stuff first. So let's try it. Here we go. This is how the meditation works. As you see, your stamina meter depletes, and you have to keep track of it because right about now, there it goes, it disappears, but it's still depleting in the background. And you have to try and make a bit of an educated guess, however you want to do it, time it with, trace it with your fingers, whatever you feel is best, and try and aim to end the meditation right before you run out, at around 20% stamina remaining, or less, but not too much less. And we'll try now. Yay, I did it! First try. Alright, and there we go. Now, I have learned a bunch of new shouts from all the words that I have. Yeah. In fact, let's go ahead and save now. And it's going to go through and be like, hey, look at all this awesome stuff you learned. The mod does also add a bit of a quest. If we go to all the way down here to Champion of Kine, it shows you some of the things that can be done in order to actually gain favor. So the favor system that I was talking about, you will be given various objectives. And a couple of them are repeatable, as you saw there, and you can get more and more favor when you do them repeatedly. For instance, just shouting gives you about 4 favor, and once a day you can shout directly up towards the sky, and that will give you about 25 favor. You can do things like, let's see, reaching the top of the throat of the world will give you some. You can use Whirlwind Sprint, thank you, to jump off of a high area, a very high area, something that would have normally killed you, and then before you hit the ground, you'll be teleported back up to where you shouted off of, and that will get you favor. That's not repeatable, by the way. You can, let's see, donate 1,000 gold to Arngeir for the monastery. That'll give you favor. There are a bunch of different ways, so eventually you will get the 1,000 favor you need to actually learn all 3 words of any of the new shouts. It's not that difficult. It just takes a little bit of time. So it adds a sort of pseudo-quest line, you could say, to actually doing it. Also, every time you make the pilgrimage up the 7,000 steps and read all of the plaques to get the Voice of the Sky bonus, that will give you favor. And finally, it also adds this thing called Kine's Fire at the bottom of the 7,000 steps. You go to that, it's this green torch, you tap it, and you'll be given a buff, well, a sort of debuff almost that starts to deplete your health, it'll automatically equip Whirlwind Sprint, and you won't be able to go to your menu, and you have to try and run all the way up the 7,000 steps to the doors of High Hrothgar as fast as you can. And if you get it in time, that will give you a huge, like 150 lump boost in favor, but that's not repeatable. You can only succeed. You can do it as many times as you want, but you can only succeed and get the favor once. So you can try repeatedly. So now, as you see, I have a bunch of new shouts. A lot, in fact. And every one of these has many, many uses. There are some really cool things, and of course they all look pretty neat as well. Unfortunately, I don't have the rest of Annihilate. I don't remember what I need for that. I think it might be Cyclone? I don't remember. Armageddon is what I'm going to show. I'm going to show a couple others, and this is going to be the kind of wrap-up of the video here. Essentially, all of the new shouts are fairly multi-purpose, in that, unlike a lot of the vanilla shouts, the words aren't just more powerful versions of each other. So, things like Unrelenting Force, for instance, the first word is a small push, the second word is a bigger push, and the third word's a huge push. It's the same thing, but it gets stronger. In the case of a lot of the shouts added by Thunderchild, it is actually multi-purpose. Not every shout is a more powerful version of the last. So, if I was to just use Armageddon, for instance, this is a new shout added. Armageddon calls down some meteors. It uses the first word of Whirlwind Sprint and the last two words of, as you can see, Fire Breath. So if you have all of those in 1,000 favor, you can learn it. So here's what the first word does. It's going to call down a small cadre of meteors to horribly murder my enemies. The second word, however, is going to pretty much do the same thing, but in a bigger way. So, as you can see, or hear, I suppose, the, first of all, it's very impressive, but the actual, oh god, I'm sorry, Sarada! The actual words sound very good together. They don't sound hastily hacked together, like I mentioned earlier. They all sound pretty natural in the way that it's actually meant to sound. Like, you know, the shouts are naturally, they go that way. I guess that's why the words are added in the way that they are. And then finally, the third word, instead of calling down a big storm of meteors, actually calls down one really big one. And I should run now. Oh yeah. That's pretty. Yeah, and as you can see, that would horribly murder pretty much anything in the area, and is also very impressive. A lot of the goals of this mod are to make you feel very, very strong, to make the shouts all feel like you really have a lot of power in you, which is, I think, actually done really well. Also, one other thing I should show you really quick is this. This is the book that will be added inside that meditation chamber, and it gives you a nice record of all of the new shouts. It gives you a, I recommend carrying this at all times until you learn them all. It gives you a nice little lore description of each shout. It tells you individually what each word does, since some of the words they're not exactly, I guess, easy to figure out sometimes. And it also tells you what the words actually come from, so you know if you want a specific one of the new shouts, then you need to get certain words from others. So this is really nice. Gives you a really good little overview. And as you can see, let's just look at Annihilate, for instance. I guess there's not really a term for this, but Modal Shouts is actually something that I like to call them, because you gotta come up with a stupid name for everything if you're a YouTuber. And the way the shouts work is that oftentimes, like I mentioned, they're not more powerful versions of each other. Instead, each word does a different thing, which means that being equipped with a single shout can often give you multiple uses. So Annihilate, for instance, the first word will remove pretty much all of the magicka and stamina of an enemy, but the second word instead is a big health reduction, and the third word is a really big kind of black hole. Not every, that's not a kind of logical progression of just it getting more powerful. It actually changes its usages. So that means that every single shout tends to have multiple uses depending on how many words you actually want to use, which is cool. Even this one, as you can tell, it's a big magic resistance, and then the last word has nothing to do with that. It actually summons a bunch of spirits under your control when you cast spells, which obviously synergizes with the other words reducing magical resistance. So the new shouts tend to have multiple uses, and each one being kind of more crazy than the next. This one basically is like a DDR minigame if you use all 3 words, or you could juggle your foe into the air, or you could just do a bunch of extra power attack damage. So every shout is actually quite powerful. They don't feel overpowered, in my opinion, but I think my favorite thing about it is just how many of the new shouts do different things. They tend to not do kind of more powerful versions of each other, and they often have a great number of uses. So even just having a couple of new shouts in your repertoire can mean that you're capable of several new things that you otherwise weren't. And I like that. I think that, you know, that was obviously his kind of design goal, I suppose, with the mod. I gotta wait for my shouts to cool down here. The design goal with the mod was to make you feel like a tongue. That's the, a tongue, of course, for those who don't know, that sounds very strange to you, tongues are people that shout. They are the people that know how to shout like dragons. That, I don't remember what that actually does with the first word. Let me try and show you a different one. Shattersphere is pretty cool. You can only use this one once a day, but it's a pretty powerful orb of frost. Although using it on a frost troll, not the most effective thing in the universe. It's much more impressive when you get the second and third words. Let's see. I don't remember what the first word of some of these does. That's not good for me. Oh no. Stormblast. Let's see. That is a pretty powerful thing, if I remember correctly. This one can be fun. Gotta be careful, though. Splinter Twins is essentially a summon a twin of your enemy to attack them kind of shout. Here we go. And... did it work? Did it work? Did it work? Did it work? I think maybe the third word doesn't quite do what I think it does. I'm not showing them off very well here, am I? Hang on a minute. There we go. Sometimes it's good to read up on exactly what the shouts do, by the way. So, anyway, what I was saying is, I think that the design goal of making you feel like a kind of master of the voice, to feel very powerful and versatile with what you have available to you with just your shouts, it was done very, very well. It was, I think it's pretty clear that he knew exactly what he wanted to do with the mod, and I feel like he pulled it off very, very well. That interrupts spellcasters, that's what it does. Let's see. What does all 3 words of that is magic damage. Let's see. Splinter Twins, the final word is, yeah, just didn't hit him right. Stormblast. Shock damage and call down lightning bolts. That sounds pretty sweet. But yeah, just mostly doing this for the video, so let's just attack something with it. Another thing that the mod adds are these so-called pillars, and you can find them all around the world. There are 23 pillars. By the way, there are 29 new shouts, if you're wondering about the full number of shouts available in the mod. There are 29 of them. It's pretty impressive. And there are 23 of these pillars you can find. They will be marked on your map once you find one of them, and they are kind of like standing stones. They are large kind of bonuses, but you can only have one active at any given time, and they improve different shouts in different ways. For instance, the pillar for Armageddon improves the impact damage of the final big meteor by like 400% or something ridiculous like that. There's some that reduce cooldowns or improve certain effects of shouts. Basically, it allows you to kind of specialize in the abilities of one shout by making it even more powerful than it already was. Whoa! Sorry, Serana. I had to do that for the video. That was cool. So that's what the first word of Stormblast does. It makes you call down a lightning bolt and horribly smite your enemies. But yeah, I think you're getting the idea of what Thunderchild actually is. It is a very impressive effort by the modder to make the shout system feel more powerful, to make you feel more like a actual master of the voice, and not just like a kind of, I suppose, somewhat powerful Dragonborn. Now you really feel like you've got something special going on with the actual shouts available to you. And again, 29 new shouts encompassing the vanilla words and the Dawnguard and Dragonborn words for shouts. So yeah, that's how the mod works. It is a super impressive effort. The new shouts feel very powerful, and you can do some really fun things with them, and I would highly recommend that you give this one a shot. One final thing to say about the mod is it also it takes the place of a couple of those shout balancing mods that kind of alter the balance of the vanilla shouts. It's meant to kind of replace those so that, you know, it improves the damage and reduces the cooldown of some other shouts in the vanilla game. Like, for instance, Fire Breath deals more damage, Ice Breath now deals a bunch of damage over time. It fixes the bug with Drain Vitality and Dawn Guard and Marked for Death. It fixes the bug with Marked for Death, permanently removing armor, but now instead it makes it reduce armor temporarily by a larger amount. It rebalances the vanilla shouts, as well as kind of altering some of the newer issues that came along with the DLCs. This is one of those pillars, by the way, and this is what I was talking about. I can't activate it right now because this is for Marked for Death, but to activate a pillar, you have to have all 3 words learned of a shout. But I just wanted to show you, you know, what I was talking about. You can find 23 of these in random places in the world. Now, I think that's all. I think you get the idea. This has been Thunderchild. It is a very popular mod because of what it does. You know, what it does is really pretty unique because, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, there are pretty much no mods that do this, that add so many shouts and are actually focused on the idea of adding a bunch of new shouts. There are some really cool ones that I can't quite show you right now. Did I just kill myself? No, it just knocked me over. And, for instance, there's one that actually, the one I was talking about earlier, Dance of Death, if you use all of the words on that one, it essentially it puts these little arrows on the ground and you have to step into them like a Dance Dance Revolution minigame, and it does a bunch of damage to enemies around you as you do it. That's kind of amazing. There's one that actually allows you to lift people up and toss them into a big aerial black hole. There's one that even allows you to more or less shatter everyone around you by doing a bit of a minigame. So the shouts aren't just point and shout either. There are many that add new mechanics to the way that the shout actually works, little minigames. There's also one, the Speak Unto the Stars, that allows you to... It shows a bunch of stars in the sky, I think the third word, and you can look at them to sort of pop them. And then the more you do that, the more the first word, when you use it again, will be powered up and do a bunch of magic damage. Basically, the shouts tend to add a bunch of new minigames and things to each other, and it makes them all feel pretty unique. So, yeah, I'm a big fan. Now, for those of you who were kind of wondering, I am going to be doing more Skyrim mod videos now. I'm going to redo Apocalypse, because my Apocalypse video is not very good. I screwed it up. I just didn't cover it very well. I made a lot of mistakes. I covered spells that weren't even added by the mod, which is just a horrible rookie mistake. So I'm going to be redoing that video and doing it in a much better, more researched way this time that actually does the mod proper justice. And also, 2 more of this guy's mods I'm going to be covering are Dwemerverse and Spectroverse, which are 2 quest line-based spell mods that add Dwemer tech, Magitech spells, and spells of the stars, the Magnagi, the Children of Magnus, respectively. So I'm gonna find a way to actually record those quest lines in a good, fun-to-watch, not horrendously boring way, and I'll probably see you then. So thanks for watching, everyone. This has been Thunderchild, and I highly recommend it. Please check it out. I will link the Nexus mod page in the description below the video, and it's a really easy install. It pretty much has no conflicts. If you're using something like Skyrim Redone or Percus Maximus, it has compatibility patches on the page already available that work just fine, and if you're using the other perk overhaul that is new by the modder himself, Ordinator, it works with that as well. So, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.